everyone. I hope you have heard me or and also seen me during the first phase of environmental management course. So, as a part of when we are looking at environmental management, the first thing that we see, especially around cities, is how the city has grown. So, it has grown, what has it cost? And finally, how that the causal factor can be mitigated. So I'm going to take you down through these aspects that we have worked on to tell you that how and what better we can do when we are looking at environmental management as a course. Uh, so if you've heard me, you have seen this particular slide with where the basic idea is now when we are looking at many cities across India, across many other spaces. So most of them speak about what is a smart city or just a technological hub. So when we are looking at smart cities, we are only looking at a point location of the city. But or a hub for various activities. So then by 2020, the growth of cities has happened over a period of time. So if you look at there is boundaries of cities here, and there is also a 10-kilometer buffer. And when you look at many of these cities, you see these corridors. Corridors are actually acting as one of those actors which are aiding the kind of growth. So technically, if we want to understand the growth, we have to understand how these corridors are there, what is the size of a corridor, and if those corridors are aiding the growth, then what kind of growth it is actually aiding and why. So that is the transition that we have to look at some of later studies. I'll show you some of those bits later. But before that, when we look at, we also try to see that if this growth is kind of going as business as usual, or do you have a spurt of urban growth across various cities. So we tried a model called Sleuth. We looked at a model. This was through a project, Glopolis, that was by one of the universities, University of Calgary and other universities together developed it. So this particularly showed that there would be complete densification, which means the entire center across all the cities would densify hugely and then start skirting heavily outside the outskirts of the city, and which seemed to be true even in today's context. So this was projected to 2030, and they could see that okay, even in today's context, whether you since you are in Bangalore, if you travel to many of these places which it showed that it would spurt, I'm sure you would find that there has been a spurt of growth across Bangalore. Then there was a question that was raised uh, as to how many trees are there in Bangalore. So when I say trees, you should understand that these are tree crowns, which may be the trees that can be planted at a height which is covering the entire space. Not the seedlings or the smaller trees which may not be very clearly visible. So when we looked at, first we did the tree census, then we looked at for IISC campus, when we did tree census and then looked at classification. So we could get almost 99% match. So with that we looked at different wards across Bangalore, and finally we drew this particular tree density map for Bangalore. So it also shows some fact that the tree density has really gone down. The number Bangalore has really gone down. And with the population proportion, it came up to 1.7%, which had to be otherwise. So this kind of this kind of thing was there. There was one more question that was raised. If this is a tree growth of Bangalore, can you tell us that if there are what are the number of buildings that are there across Bangalore, and if, what is the size of a building, what's the height of a building, and what is exactly the I mean whether it is an commercial building versus residential building because of its property that is for example, these are the buildings. If there are commercially there, then you have a lot of other measures. For example, air conditioning. So these are used in order to make you thermally comfortable. So especially the larger buildings which do not have a native architecture, so they try to use advanced, so which can actually make you more comfortable. So when you look at these aspects, so the smart energy comes into place here, and the smart building also comes into action to see where actually the building should have a high use density. So we looked at it across Bangalore. We also looked at it across Kolkata, especially the Salt Lake part of it, which is more a planned area. So we looked at it and we tried to develop the entire 3D view for Bangalore. So this is how it looks. So we put it on to the server where people can extract these data as necessary. So having said this now, when you look at, you have a landscape map of Bangalore, you have 3D building map of Bangalore. So so Bangalore should be much integrated, which means that you can actually look at really what is the kind of the building and where it can actually come in. So you have a 3D, complete 3D visual of it. So having said this, then again a question raised. Okay, you have a map for Bangalore, you have a map for Kolkata with buildings, with landscape view also as with the height, size, etc. But can you tell us that how how thermally you can separate segregate these buildings? For example, which is the building that is provided that is actually is affected by the large amount of heat, whereas which is the building which is affected by uh, the heat which is much on a lower intensity. So then we looked at land surface temperature, and also we are now looking at the both indoor air quality, outdoor air quality, thermal comfort, and the thermal insulations in these buildings. So when for a particular case study, if you look at Mahabazar in Kolkata, you could see that there are different kinds of buildings. Mostly these are mid-sized buildings that are there, and this is one of the oldest areas and the marketplace of Kolkata. So there are certain places in these areas which are quite old, and these buildings are especially have a very cooler climate, which means to say that it is thermally comfortable inside this building. Whereas there are some newly constructed building on the other sides which have a higher temperature. These buildings have already been fitted with the air conditioning, especially looking at the amount of moisture content and temperature that is there in Kolkata, especially in the summer months. So this is for another part of the region, very close to Howrah. It's called TVRAMACHANDra. So you can see the newer construction, especially towards outside from Howrah, you can see a higher amount of temperature that is there. Whereas older construction towards Howrah, where a really old part of the city is there, so that part is much colder in terms of, or it is more thermally comfortable. So similarly, Park Street, which is very well known for its place for entertainment for various activities, are more posh area of Kolkata. You could see that the higher ranges where there are closer buildings and of high density or higher buildings, you could see that there is a rise in temperature that these buildings are affected, and because of which then the question was that okay, if you are saying with this you are looking at both the smart climate and smart buildings, then can you tell us that what kind of buildings are these and what are actually these characteristics of this building that is making it really thermally uncomfortable. So we started looking at various things how we can classify these buildings even without only bringing on a certain area and using that knowledge, using deep learning or any other knowledge transfer techniques to actually transfer that knowledge to learn the larger part of the sections. And if you see, these are some of the results. So this is actually classifying what is a particular residential building, what is amount of commercial building. Now we know what is residential building, what is a commercial building. With that, it is easier for us to understand both the energy concerns and the climate concerns that are there in that region. So with height, we know even what is the kind of building that is used for. Having said this, there is other part of the same entire cycle which says you have to look at smart transport. So when I say smart transport, the first thing for especially for Bangaloreans is that thinking about the road, right? So when you are looking at road, you need to understand what is the size of road, what is the thickness of the road, and what is the density of that road that it can, traffic density that it can handle, and what is the size of a building that is there. So look at this. We also try to automate this particular process where we were very successful in terms of extracting any kind of code that is available. So many of these images are from Bangalore. So if you and we could extract even those roads which are not available in your Google Maps. So probably the final maps that we have generated, if you start looking at that, using it as a background in the Google Maps, you will not get lost since it would have all the roads. Whereas if you look at Google Maps, somewhere in Bangalore you are sure to get lost if you are navigating it using the maps because it has most of the roads that we have extracted, which exist. So that's how this particular model has worked. So having said this, the basic idea of all of these thing is to first develop all these layers. So more importantly is to real-time assessment. So we are trying to look at if there can be an NRSC dashboard, which actually National Remote Sensing dashboard, which can aid us in terms of giving us a backend data and adding our data to these precision maps and developing a special data infrastructure, which means that at an infrastructure where the data is crunched and whatever the data analytics is there is being actually transferred into the real domain. So for any policy decision. So this is a basic idea that we are actually looking at. And in this mode, we look at the initial stage of STSS that was way back in 2020. And post that, IIT Kharagpur in 2019-20 started looking at if we can integrate some of these urban solution problems to various government agencies. So Government of India and Government of West Bengal along with IIT Kharagpur started looking at this particular aspect and we came up with a solution of looking at urban solution in terms of urban observatory. So which means that having a real-time data, having all data analytics and looking at different indicators, with that we try to integrate different stakeholders. We had people from police department, we had people from various planning resource background to help us to start with this particular project. So we even got out a three stock take report. Okay, so this is to government of West Bengal. We prepared in 2018 and this was revised in 2021 and this was given, I mean, presented to them. So we had three parts. One is on transport, one is on digital part of urban observation, which is extremely important. So there may be some questions then. Okay, so how legal is this data? Because this data is going to pinpoint everything across India, so we have to look at the legal part also. So we did this particular report and was presented to government of West Bengal. So this is what I wanted to speak. So I've told you how the urban growth has happened in Bangalore and Kolkata, how the transition has happened, and what are its effects, and finally what are we trying to do in terms of to manage it. So I hope you have understood, and I would be happy to take up some questions if there are.
Okay, are there any questions? Well, Bharat, they just wrote exam. Looks like they have drained their energy.
Yeah, I understand. So I hope everyone are going to score well.
Yeah. Okay. There's one question now. After drawing,
Uh, I'm losing your voice, so uh, probably yeah.
So I'm asking that when you have all of this data, what is going to be the applicability of this? What are the different ways and versions that you can use it for? So I'm a social worker. I'm a development professional, and from that lens, I'm asking.
So you mean to say these are data that are available, and how do you utilize various data that are there to build up this? Is that so? That
I'm
is what.
asking that how is this going to be used eventually? Like, what are the how,
Okay.
where all can we use it? Just give me a rough idea or an example. Like, I could figure out that you see a lot of green spaces. Maybe, eventually, if somebody wants to start a program on re-greening a city, we could probably do that. When you're talking about transportation, right, we could actually see what are the ways of creating inroads that lead to easy commuting or safer commuting for even women and children. We can also see spaces for green buildings or how we can green all of this together. There can be so many things. So, but from a lens of somebody who's actually working on this, what do you see would be the eventual outcome of having this kind of information?
So what when I say that urban observatory, it is about not just for one stakeholder, it is for multiple stakeholders. Whether it's an NGO, whether it is a police, whether it is anyone who is using the transport as a network, so it is for anyone. Now let's say that I have someone in the police department who wants to access my data. So for them, they have a different access of data where they are only looking at either crimes or reporting of crimes, right? And then they are looking at, okay, so these are the real-time things that are happening and where the hotspots are located, and let us look at how we are trying. So on a real time, if across Kolkata, let's say all the police stations are networked, right? All these data are actually put in where only the police officer is looking at all of this data gathering. So if there is any duplicacy of data, if there is any data that you can see that is happening in multiple stations, so he or she can easily access that data. So there is one point. And similarly, let's say that as a common name, if someone wants to look at this particular data, so someone who is looking at okay, how safe is my neighborhood? So what kind of neighborhood do I have? So each and so for every perspective of every user, you will have a different dashboards which can connect to them. That is where we define as urban observatory. And if you have seen it, there is something called as Bharat.gov.in or even if you join there, so they'll be asking your Aadhaar and where you are working and other credentials. So with that, they are tracking you what data you can access, and that access is also giving you certain decisions. Okay, you have a decision making capability there. So that is where finally the data that is generated will go to land rather than just looking at data or understanding data. Finally, it's decision making process. That is what we are talking.
So who else? Indali, you have any questions? Time. Anyone else? Come, come. You can ask.
Good evening, sir. In one of your slides, I heard about intelligent transport system. So can you kind of show the relevance of this data in intelligent transport system? How can
Can you come in?
this data can be used in intelligent transport system?
See, intelligent transport system is how your signaling, networking, etc. works when there is a transport network, transport load, etc. So what do you basically need? You need data. You need to learn from that data. So what we are trying to explore here is, as an observatory, that the data as a provision where we are creating that bank of data. With that data feed, you are trying to learn and then apply. So we are creating only that bank of data. Now you learn from it, so you apply your intelligent transport system, whatever you want to, wherever either the signaling or the networking or boot training, whatever you want to try to do it, you are going to do it on above it, right? So our basic idea is to get the data to anyone who is a necessary of that particular data. You make your first decision or put other technology on it and explore that how you can apply it.
Anyone else? You have any questions?
Hi sir, are you using blockchain to enter the data?
Yeah.
Are you using blockchain to enter the data because you're using the
No,
cloud?
no, no. We have not used blockchain, but yes, IIT Kharagpur is actually looking at how we can utilize that particular technology in putting up this data, especially after the SCIs. We have, until now, we have not used it.
But it has a potential, right, in cloud
Yeah,
platform.
it has to be utilized. It is very much potential.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. Is there any more question?
Thank you for us for last minute invitation also. Happy day. See you. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Very cool that giving this my that's what. No, that's what he said. You can go and last time you wanted to talk. Okay, another 2 minutes we'll wind up. Okay. presentation, please do it properly. So no casual approach, okay? So because
Please send the PPT.
okay, any questions you have regarding the project presentations?
Yeah.
I given the time. Please see the thing. It is there, no? It is not there or it is there? I'm surprised it doesn't. I given kind of 2 hours for 2 persons. You have enough time. You cannot give excuse of not having the time.
So I finished my PPT and planned my presentation, but one small thing I don't know if I missed out is should the PPT contain each section of my project as well, or can I things like
You did your master's or a bachelor degree. Project
yeah,
was no. How did
no,
you do
but
the
in that
presentation?
we didn't do such formats. It was very case study
It
presentations.
carries the marks, and there is no time constraint.
Huh.
So you plan accordingly.
So like have each section
Yeah, each section
elaborately.
has to be based on your objective, your method,
Huh.
how you did the project, then what is the outcome, the thing, then what is the future scope of the work. All those things.
Limitations and everything should be there.
Limitations, everything else.
Okay.
Sir, we need to give some introduction also.
Yeah, you need to introduce also. What are the
That
slides?
your subject, you have to.
And these days we also add research highlights. You know, first slide we put the highlights in bullet.
That's yeah.
I mean, if the time is there, you can add it. Okay. And please give the lesson tomorrow morning 8:30. We'll meet. We'll correct the slides, and we'll start teaching.
20. Increase the font size and also send big is means it is it won't be. Let the font size be bigger. Because project exam is there, right? So please keep it in your mind.
Okay. Any other things? Tomorrow we'll meet at 8:30. Okay. So we have only 3 more days to go. So please plan and make sure that we have a very fruitful session. Okay.
The project examination which is there on 6th, it is based on the presentation which everyone is showing.
Yes.
It will be there. So I have to be very attentive that everyone is.
That is the purpose
That
of
is
the
the
project
purpose.
exam.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I
But-
noticed people like Anupam, no, they will give presentation, they will go out and they will be. I mean, I gave one example because I see him going out very often. That's why.
So, but yeah, so that I understand. But the thing is, like, it will be questions or how it will be like. That
But there
I
will
am.
be question. What you have presented based on that, I will have one or two questions.
So mine, I will answer, but if I have no idea about. I have that idea, but if something comes from this, I have to be. I am recalling also. Na?
Yes, yes. That is why you have to be attentive in the class.
Actually, when you didn't understand it, you can ask your teacher.
Mm.
That who is present.
See, the idea of that is all these projects. You know, this course is not just a theory, hands-on session also, so that you get exposed to the practical thing. And there are people from industries and we thought that they bring their results so that others are benefited. Because there are youngsters who are not exposed to the industry thing. Now with that knowledge they can do better. But in Indian condition we notice that the people are not that attentive. That's where I introduced the exam from the last 3 sessions I have started. Earlier there was no exam for the project. I started after that we realized that people are think that it is for me. The course is for me. They'll give a presentation, they'll run and they'll this one, and they all behave as if they have landed from the moon. So that's where I brought them to the earth and giving the exam. That's it. I hope you understood. Any other question? So anyway, reporting today you failed. Good. Okay, let me see. All the best.